Hey, how's it going? Have you heard or seen the series Adolescence? Adolescence. If you have, then I'd love to know what you thought of the series. I'd love for you to comment and let me know what you thought. If you haven't, basically in this video, I'm going to talk about what I took away from this series. So the series of Adolescence is a new series on Netflix. They're showing it right now in the UK. I know they're showing it in other countries as well, because I've seen it being advertised and I've seen the cast being interviewed, in other countries as well. And basically what it is, it's a 3 or 4 part series, basically examining the dangers, looking at the dangers of online, social media, that kind of thing, but specifically geared towards teenage boys. That's what it's about. I mean, online, we know we live in a day and age where our kids aren't safe online. I've spoken to so many parents and they say that they're so freaked out by what's out there, what's available out there, that some parents actually sit next to their kids when their kids are playing Roblox or, whatever, that they're so worried about, very dodgy characters that might be masquerading as kids on these very, innocent looking game platforms. And that's how they're trying to protect their kids, just by sitting next to their kids or even playing with their kids, on Roblox, etc. It's okay if your child is 7, 8, 9 years old. But when you get kids as old as my kids are, I've got a son who's 16, I've got a daughter who's turning 15 soon, they're not going to be over the moon with their mum sitting next to them while they're scrolling through TikTok, right? I don't think any teenager would be okay with that. So we know we live in a world where we need to try as much as possible to protect our kids when they're online. We know that we can't stop them. We can't keep them away from the online world. If we do, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to raise lots of questions because our kids see that all the other kids are online. So why not them? And obviously being at that delicate, sensitive age that they are, they think, oh, mum and dad, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to look out for the signs. Trust me. But obviously they're only kids. They don't know what they don't know, right? So I really found this series very, very enlightening. I found it definitely something that I would highly suggest every parent watches. It is a wake-up call to parents, definitely, especially if you've got teens. I've got teens, and I thought in my own little limited brain, I thought that, I'm good. I'm not saying I'm the best parent in the world, but I feel like I have a nice close, warm bond with both my kids. We have open communication. We talk about lots of things. With their permission, I knock on the door, go in, and I say, right, let's sit down and talk. Tell me about school, what's going on, good things, bad things. Just tell me whatever you've got in your heart. Tell me. We have these sessions, say 2-3 times a week. And initially it was very annoying for my kids. It was like, oh God, mom, I spoke to you like 2-3 days ago. But now they actually welcome it because it's something that they're used to. And I think I've seen signs where they're actually looked forward to it. If something's been, upsetting them throughout the week, or they've had a very difficult conversation with friends or peers or whatever, or they've seen something online that's been playing on their mind, they actually look forward to that vent and that release when they get to sit down and talk to their mum. And believe me, as a parent, having to take off my parent's cap and putting on another cap that is just there for listening. I can't be a mum. I can't be a judge. I just have to sit there and listen. Because that's the side of me that they want. They don't want this judgmental parent that says, oh, well, I told you not to talk to so-and-so. I told you not to go on TikTok. They don't need that, right? They just need someone to be able to get whatever it is off their chest. So even though I do these things, even though in my own little mind, I thought I knew my teenagers, I thought I knew my kids, I thought I knew, the world they're up against, because in my own little head, it wasn't that long ago that I was a teenager. That's how I like to think about it anyway. But having watched this series, I realized that boy, was I wrong wow, was I wrong, right? The series Adolescence is, I think, 3 or 4 parts. I'm not sure, 3 or 4 parts. And each episode is around about 40-50 minutes. I love the way it was filmed. It was filmed here in the UK. I love the way it was filmed in that each episode is one continuous scene, right? So if, for example, you start off in the house of this family, you've got the main family, you're in the house, the camera will follow, the main actor or the main character of the episode all throughout, from the right at the beginning all the way to the end of the episode. So it will not be that you've got the family in the house, then cut, next time you see they're going to be in the car. No, the camera follows them all over the place. And I love that because it adds the sense of time. It's like real time. You see what really is happening. In one of the episodes, you've got the family sitting in the car, driving from their house to one of these DIY shops. And you think to yourself, gosh, this is a long scene, they need to cut it or whatever. But they show every single second of whatever's going on. You're with the characters. You get to feel in real time what's going on, which really adds to the suspense. I think it's fantastically made. It's a huge gamble on the part of the actors, because if any of the actors slip up with their lines, then they're going to have to cut and start right at the beginning again, obviously, because it's just one continuous scene. But I thought it was really well made. Huge shout out to all the actors. The main character, the father, is played by Stephen Graham. I've got their names written here so I don't forget. Stephen Graham, what an actor, right? What a fantastic actor. Such fantastic flexibility with his accents. Obviously, he's a great, very, very talented actor with his accents, with his acting, everything. And I think actually this whole series was, if I'm not mistaken, his brainchild. He had initially seen or heard of an incident that had happened, seen a documentary or heard about it, an incident that had happened, a very tragic incident that had happened involving 2 teenagers in London. And I actually myself went and watched that documentary later. It's on BBC iPlayer. It's called The Bus Stop Murder, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the story of this 15-year-old teenage boy who ends up stabbing this teenage girl at a bus stop day, right at the beginning of the day, like 9:30 in the morning, on one of the busiest streets in London, right next to a huge shopping centre, in front of a bus stop. I mean, you can't get more in the middle of the crowd in broad daylight than that, can you? A lot of people think that stabbings and these crimes only happen in dark, kind of like hidden areas. No, they can happen absolutely anywhere, which is absolutely any parent's nightmare. So that was the documentary that happened, and it raised alarm bells and flags, and very, very upsetting to watch. And the same with Stephen Graham, who'd seen this documentary, and it had created questions in his head, and he was trying to think, why is this so freely happening all over the place? Apparently 2 incidents had happened in 2 different, 2 sides of the country, and these things are happening a lot. Why is it okay that these things are happening so much? Why isn't anyone doing anything about it? So I think that's why he thought of creating this series, and what a fantastic job he's done. And then the boy who plays his son, who is the main, the person who basically did the attack, he is played by Owen Cooper, and I believe that it was his very first time acting in this series. What a talent. Oh my God, what a talent. You just watch him, you can't believe that this is the very first time this kid is in front of a camera. It's magic. It really is pure magic. And the better the performance, obviously, the more you can sympathize and also try and understand the characters and the story. So that side apart, I'm a huge film fan, you can tell. But I really wanted to watch this series as a parent of teenagers. I'd heard that it's definitely something to watch. I'd seen it all over the place, social media, news, etc. So I sat and watched it. I blocked three or 4 hours out of my weekend with little breaks in the middle, and I sat and watched all of it. And when it was done, I honestly felt, when you watch something and you're not aware of your own body, When it finished, I found my hands were covering my face. You know, when you're in shock, you're like, well, that's what I am. Everyone has a different reaction. But I found quite a few times actually during the series that I was like this, right? It's just me in the living room watching this. It was just, but I was in absolute shock. And this is all based on a true story. It's not the shock of the stabbing and stuff. Unfortunately, sadly, this society has become desensitized to that, sadly, because it happens so much. And it's terrible to say that. It's horrible to actually admit that. But I think the shocking part was what you learn about what your kids are going through at school, right? And the communication that they have, the very hidden kind of their own language communication that they have, that if you or I were to read these comments, it would just go right over our head. We wouldn't know what they're talking about, but they actually have hidden meaning to the teenagers themselves. And it's one of those things that kids know. It's kind of like some kind of language that they use amongst themselves. For example, like a pink heart might have one meaning, a red heart might have a completely different meaning. You know, the word incel, INCEL, which is a terminology I didn't even know what it meant. Later on, I heard it means involuntary celibate. And so it's this idea that there are men out there, there are males out there in society who, for whatever reason, struggle to form romantic relationships and, you know, be in relationships. And out of this frustration, they start lashing out and start blaming women and females. And some of them, obviously, they go on to try and get help, but some of them, they start advocating hate and even violence towards women, you know, attacking women verbally, psychologically, physically sometimes, and basically blaming them for their own inability to be able to form, you know, any kind of romantic relationships. And it's gone to such a stage where in some online kind of like groups, you find that these men are starting to radicalize and brainwash teenage boys who are just so innocent. You know, they're kids, they're trying to discover themselves. And which teenager has not struggled with peer pressure? Which teenager, boy or girl, or any kind of gender identity that they have, which teenager has ever not felt like, am I enough? You know, how do other people perceive me? That is the whole nature of being a teenager, right? You start discovering yourself, you start comparing yourself constantly to other kids. That is how we start to form our own identity, by comparing ourselves to others. And when teenagers are so vulnerable at this state and this age, that's when these kind of like these predators prey on these very innocent individuals. So this is basically the main takeaway of this series of Adolescence, that as parents, we are responsible for protecting our kids against all this hate and all of this, whatever it is going on online. I am never one of these people who would ever dream of going and saying to my kids, you know, give me a phone. I would never do that, because when I was a teenager myself, I wasn't in the UK. For a few years, I was living in the Middle East. And I went to a high school where, you know, my parents trusted me. That was fine. It was the school that had an issue with me, not just me, with all the students at the school. And we had to have something that was called some kind of, they had to go through our bags, basically. And it would be a random search. We'd be in the middle of a lesson, and then suddenly we'd have 2, 3, sometimes students, sometimes older students, sometimes teachers would just come in unannounced, and they would start rummaging in our bags, you know, without our permission, without our consent. It was just the norm, apparently. And they were looking for stuff that, you know, you're not supposed to have at school, this, that, and the other. And no matter how many times I would say, I don't like people looking in my bag, it's my private space, I don't have anything that I'm not supposed to, please trust me, but I'm telling you, I don't like you rummaging in my bag. Regardless of how many times I said this, and I truly and honestly didn't have anything to hide, It's like, no, we don't trust you. Whatever you say, whatever you do, even if you're an exemplary student, we don't care. We're still going to go through your bag and check your bag with or without your permission. We're just going to do it anyway. And that just left a really bitter taste in my mouth as a kid, that even though I'm telling the truth, even though I'm being upfront, I'm being honest, they still don't believe me. That's horrible to be in that position. So I knew, even before I had kids, I knew that I was going to make sure that I respect my kids as much as possible, teach them respect, teach them trust, teach them that gaining someone's trust is very difficult, and then losing it happens so quickly. But then obviously to pick up and gain that trust back again can take ages, and sometimes it might not even happen. So this is something that I've tried to teach my kids, over the years. Today, I'm really happy to say I thought, like I said right at the start, that I had a really happy, healthy, very close, friendly, obviously with boundary relationship with my kids. I love spending time with my kids. But watching this program, watching this series really opened my eyes to what kids have to go through at school. And even if your child is someone who doesn't go and doesn't follow, these predators online, they're still not safe, unfortunately, at school, because at school there might be kids who have fallen prey to these predators. They have been groomed, unfortunately. They have been brainwashed, and your kid, even without knowing, is associated with that kid. So it's really important. I think the whole idea of this series was just to have parents aware and just to open that communication with kids. Is there anything you want to talk to me about? How's school? You know what? I'm not even going to ask you any specific questions. Just talk to me. What is it you want to share with me, right? It doesn't even have to be about school, outside school, friends, your friend's family even. I don't care. Whatever it is, just talk to me. Just open this whole line of communication with me, so I just know that you're okay. And then in time, trying to build that trust. But not just that, it's the whole idea of knowing what my kids are doing on the phone when they're in their own room. What is it they're doing? Who are they communicating with? Who are they texting? Who's texting them? What videos, what influencers are they following? What are they into? What do they find interesting? Is there something that's sparking their interest? Is it harmful? Is it helpful? Who are their friends? Who are they knocking about with inside of school, inside the classroom, outside school, nighttime before they go to bed, whatever. So it's all of this. We really, really need to know what our kids are doing, because it is a very, very uncertain, dangerous world out there, this whole idea of social media. Unfortunately, the big companies do not take enough responsibility, for trying to protect our kids. At the end of the day, I think it's our duty, it's our job, even though we don't want to be the bad guy, even though we don't want to tell our teenager, no, I don't want you talking to this person anymore. Teenagers will do what they want to do, right? So it's trying to create, I think, that kind of understanding that as your parent, if I'm telling you, or if I'm hopefully getting you to agree with me that you shouldn't be following this person, it's for a good reason. I know what I'm talking about, kind of. It's just maybe getting that communication across. Yeah. So that's what this video was about. If you have seen the series of Adolescence, do get back to me. I'd love to know what you thought. Did you think any of this, did you agree with anything I said? Is there anything else you'd like to add? I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't seen it, then I would highly recommend you watch it, definitely. It's not family viewing because it's rated 15 because of the language that they use. So if you've got little kids, you might not want to watch it in front of them because they do talk, about language that's used with crime and stabbing and that kind of thing. It's not very family friendly in that aspect, but definitely I would say it's something that parents do need to watch and be aware. Yeah, just to have that awareness. Okay, thanks. Stay safe. Take care.